All right, all right. 78 Sports TV here with my brother Buck City Kennels, and back in the building, special guest, Schoolboy, Mr. Richard Garcia. How you doing today?
Real good. How's everybody doing?
Real
All
good, real
right, all
good.
right. Y'all.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, man. Let me ask you first, Schoolboy. How's everything going with you, man? How's life treating you?
Treat me good. Treat me good. Family's healthy. You know, just doing my dog thing.
Oh, that's
You
what's up.
know,
That's
and
what's up. And what happened with the? Do you still have the registry? You guys still? Has
yeah.
anything been affected due to the coronavirus? Anything been affected by
Uh,
that?
not well. Dog shows have. You know, we can't do any dog shows, and because of some of my health issues, I can't travel. So I'm like on a travel ban from my doctor.
Right,
That's
right,
about the only thing. But yeah, I still have it, ICDR, and I do pretty much everything online or through mail. But that's the only thing that's affected it is dog shows. And then every year we have a Kinzenbaugh. I don't know if you remember his name. He had a bunch of Klaus dogs,
right, right.
some Bolio and Klaus, and we do a memorial show for him. So we haven't been able to do that, since like 2 years now. But hopefully things will get back on track, soon enough.
Right,
Oh,
right. Okay, yeah, I'd definitely be interested in check out one of them shows once everything open back up.
Yeah, yeah, it's always fun. I like doing it for the camaraderie. Get together. We always have some old dog guys there, that have a lot of experience, and that's who we usually get to judge. Is a known dog guy, or at least someone who's had 20 or 30 years experience.
Right, right. Okay. So do you guys uh you only deal with American Pitbull Terriers, or do you deal with other breeds?
No, just the American Pitbull Terrier.
Okay, I say that's good. So people who are interested in like dual registries and stuff like that, they can come to you.
Yep, just hit me up on Messenger, or my Facebook page.
Okay.
I kind of, low key, kind of. I don't really advertise a lot. It's more by word of mouth, and it's just for, I don't know. It's my way of, protecting the breed. You start getting out there too much, and then you get the wrong people involved, or
Right.
you know, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's start off with the first question. First question we got for you today is conditioning. Uh, um, how should a person, or how would you condition a hound that's coming to say one of your shows, confirmation shows? How would you go about conditioning the hound?
Right, right. Well, generally, especially for a confirmation show that has sports involved in it, I would condition the kind of the way I did for back in the day, you
Right,
know, and you want to kind of have a all around athlete. Those were my favorite types. You're more consistent with those types, rather than a specialist or a a dog that don't think too much. And how it relates to the sports is, you might be entered in treadmill, weight pool, hang time, wall climb. So you want to kind of prep the dog for to be almost like a boxer. You got to be able to move here and there, and you got to have strength and speed and power and all that, right? So my method was, where I lived was out in the country, and there were acres and acres of agriculture, right? So I had uh, I had it was a blessing really to have nothing but dirt roads, which it don't hurt the dog's pads, you know, and so I never really had a pad problem. But I used a 10-speed bike, and for me, this is just me. There's all different kinds of way you can condition, but I worked on the dog's air first, built their air up, and then their strength.
okay,
So my first half of the keep, I would do road work on a 10-speed mountain bike, and then the second half, I did a thing we called baiting. We kind of invented it. And what you do, you have a dog with a harness. That's the dog you're working. In front of me, I'd have my son with another dog, and he'd be walking in front of me. And the
right,
dog I'm working would pull, trying to get up to the other dog, right?
Right.
And you can control that pace. You can hold back on them. You can let them go faster. You can even run with them if you want. You can walk.
Right.
And it just because I relied on speed and strength a lot. There's a lot of factors in conditioning, but those were the two things I wanted in all of my dogs. First, they had to be a good worker. I like dogs that work. I've used some that didn't, and I was okay with them, but I like a dog that gets out there. He's got a good work ethic. He's got good intensity, good, drive to do something physical. And, you get the best workouts, you get the best performance out of those type of animals.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, you would say you like a dog that you would prefer a dog that wants to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Yeah.
just a workhorse. And
Hmm.
and as far as conditioning, this is kind of a point I wanted to make. I start them not conditioning, but I start them when they're young to learn how to work. And whatever methods I'm going to use, if they made it when they got older, I started teaching them when they're real young. You don't want to work a pup. You don't want to condition young dogs under a
Right.
year old,
Right.
right? Because they're not fully grown physically, and mentally either, right? So you don't want to push them too hard, but you don't want to put stress on their joints or their muscles, tear a muscle, or you can even get them to the point where you overdo it, and now they lost their drive for work, right?
Right.
Even
Right.
even even in a keep, I never worked them 100%. 80-90% is good, because you want to save that 100% for the show day. That's when you want them to give you your all. And if you do that in the keep, you can peak them out too early. And if you do that, there's really no recuperating from that. They're past it, and you have to go through the process again, where you got to let them kick back, rest, wait, and then start them from the beginning again. So
Right.
that peak is real important. There's a physical peak, which for me was a week before the show. That's when I gave them their hardest workout. And then there's a mental peak. And when the last week, what I did was I tapered back off the work. So like Saturday would be their hardest work day. Sunday I'd cut that work in half. Monday I'd cut that work in half. Tuesday I'd cut that work in half. Thursday I'd cut that work in half. And then they're done for Thursday, Friday. If the show is on Saturday.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
I'd do it on a Wednesday. They need 3 days. It just depends. You got to watch the dog and see how they act.
Right.
And what that does for them mentally is you built them up to where, they want to do something. They're getting ready for something mentally, and you're not letting it happen. So it kind of amps them up, makes them nervous, makes their metabolism starts working overtime. And that's what peaks them mentally. It's like you want to do something, like you see race horses in the chute. Sometimes you'll see them bucking up, and they're real nervous, and they're kicking. They just want to go.
Right.
That's when they're really peaked. And when you cut them loose, they'll give you everything. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the way you have to look at it.
Okay.
You can condition dogs any number of ways. Some people do cross training. Some people do a lot of flirt pole work. Some people, the mills, they use cat mills, carpet mills, mills. It's just what are you trying to do with the dog? You're trying to get them in peak physical condition, and how you go about that is, you got to pay attention to the dog, see what he can do, see what he's giving you that day. Do you need to back off, increase work? And generally what I would do is I would do the same workout 3 days in a row. Like if I was running them 5 miles, I'd run them 5 miles for 3 days, and then I'd increase it a half a mile for the next 3 days. And that's how I kind of did, and there's rest days in between.
Right.
So in my mind, the first day you're introducing them to a new distance, even if it's just a half a mile, right? So that's the introduction to that harder workout. Second day, they're kind of getting used to it. Third day, they're used to it. They'll go balls out. They can run 100 miles an hour. Then you rest them, and then the next day you increase it again, and you just go through that process over and over and over again until you
Right.
got them. Whatever you consider is your peak workout. Generally, my keeps were 8 weeks, but like I was saying, I fed and I exercised my dogs regularly. I fed them good and exercised them regularly. And we'll get into this when you ask the some of the next questions. I'll explain a little more.
Okay.
But I kind of got them ready for what they were going to do later as an adult, so they were ready to go. And the conditioning, they already know it. When they're 2 years old, 3 years old, they already know how to do the keep because they've been doing it their whole life, at least a little bit of it.
Right. Right.
And if they make it, they're good to go. Now, along with all that, you got to socialize them. I don't mean with other animals, but socialize them in public. I used to take them to the mountains. We used to take them to Disneyland. They were accustomed to different atmosphere, different people, different situations up in the mountains, sitting in the crate for hours at a time in a vehicle. Do that their whole life, right? And what you have is an animal that's good all around animal. He ain't scared of nothing. We used to play loud music and shoot guns. I lived out in the country.
Right.
And drive by with trucks going, driving loud and skidding out and all that. My dogs never cried like you hear fire trucks going by and screaming like that. It didn't matter to them. It didn't bother them. You hear all these cur dogs, they're always crying and all. Mine didn't do that. It hurts their ear. But if they get accustomed to something, then it's just normal part of their day. So that being said, I could send grown dogs here, there, everywhere, and I tell people they're good to go, man. They're good to go. Whatever you want to do with them, do it. They'll do it. Even if you're introducing them to a new, like I didn't use a treadmill. If you want to, it ain't gonna take much to teach them to get their learn how to use a treadmill because they got that work ethic in their head. And once they figure out, oh, you want me to run this, boom. And I always got good feedback on it.
Right.
And
Right.
always people tell me, hey, they did what just like you said they would, And I just tell them, well, that's the way they're raised,
Right. Okay. My brother Buck City. Got any questions for them for the next question?
Oh yeah. What you want me to call you,
Mr. You can call me Schoolboy. You can call me Richard. Whatever.
Okay.
A lot of people call me worse than that, but it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I got my dogs. They're kind of fat right now. It used to be when I first dealt with the dogs, it was condition weight and it was chain weight, right? So I'm gonna put an extra one. I'm gonna put hog fat weight. So with those three variables, what do you think is the proper way to find out my dog's condition weight? Maybe he is coming off the chain weight, and maybe he is a hog fat dog just because of the situations or just different scrutiny that these dogs get for their athletic physique sometimes.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, you have if a dog is hog fat, that's where a pre-keep come in. And a lot of people do a pre-keep and then they go straight into a keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking for your dog's weight, so you can't do that. You can do a pre-keep 6 months before. So if they're hog fat, you're gonna try and work them down to their weight,
right?
And to figure out what that is. And I never kept my dogs, fat because even though it got down to freezing where I lived, it was never real cold like it is up in the Great Lakes area, where it's 20 below or anything like that. So in their situation, they have to keep them maybe 10 pounds overweight, depending on the size of the dog. I never had mine more than 4 or 5 pounds over. And generally, if it's a dog I was using back in the day, I only had them a couple of pounds overweight, and I kept them at that weight. But when you're trying to find out this dog's weight, you'd have to put them through the work. And the best way for me to do that was, let's say it's springtime, season starting, or it's fall, season starting. We have season here because during the summertime I didn't really do nothing with my dogs. So I'd give them a daily feed, and with all my dogs, again, from when they were little, I had a particular feed kibble that I used, and I used supplements. I used it's a vitamin mineral trace element supplement called Dog Bloom. I gave them that, and I gave them B15 and desiccated liver. They got that their whole life, right? So I'm giving them their regular daily feed. I'll take them out and start working them, right? They're over a period between 2 weeks and 4 weeks, they're going to drop weight. You ain't changing the feed, but you're increasing the work a little bit every week as you go along. If they're close to their weight, if they're thinner, in about 2 weeks, you'll find this out. If they're heavier, about 4 weeks. If they're hog fat, like you're saying, and what'll happen is their weight will drop, and then it'll stay steady for, say, 3 days. You're close to the weight there. You're real close. And as long as their back hips, their shoulder blades, they have a nice covering over them with muscle on both sides, then you haven't got too far. Some people actually work them down below their weight where they're weak, right? And that's really the tell. Are they still strong at that lower weight, But they'll work them down below their weight where they're weak, and they know they went too far, and then they'll let them come up, and then they'll pick their weight there. And so that's kind of how I did it. It worked pretty good. The thing with weight, people say ideal weight, they're perfect weight, this and that. If you follow the history of the dog, it's never the same weight for every dog. Even the most famous dogs there's been, they were used at different weights. So what might be ideal for you may not be ideal for me. The only way to tell was when you see them go, hey, did they keep work? Are they good? Are they strong? Do they keep that conditioning, for a long period of time if they need to?
Right.
But you want a good covering over the bones that are exposed, say like the hip bones, the front shoulders, the ones that are facing out, like their muzzle is, Plus their head. What'll happen is you'll see the top of their head. There's muscles on both sides. That'll split, and you can actually see each side of the muscles. They're defined, right?
Right.
When that gets sunk in, you're too low. When they look like I don't know, when maybe like a Holocaust victim or something.
Yes, emaciated. Yeah, starting to have that emaciated look, huh?
Yeah, emaciated look. Their eyes should always be clear, watery. They should be focused. There should be a lot of color to their eye. I didn't like dogs that had a lot of white around their pupils. I don't know why, and we've I debated it on my group page a lot. People ask me, how come you don't like that? I don't know. It's just something that I learned from a game file guy a long time ago. In his opinion, there's a health problem there. He don't know what it is. He could never explain it. But for me, I like a full colored, full of blood. I guess I don't know what it is, but I just don't like a lot of white around their eye. Andre Giroux, he did that with his racing pigeon. He used to race pigeons, right? And his thing was, if he looked at one of his pigeons, there was too much white around their eye, he'd cull them right there. He just didn't like it, So maybe a myth, maybe something to it, but for some people, it's an underlying health problem that.
Right. Okay. My question for you, my next question is, because this has been like a debate for a while, amongst a lot of dog men, and one that's confused me a lot. But in your experience, in your opinion, can you we're talking from a historical standpoint here,
Right.
Nothing current, but just historically.
Always.
Yeah. Exactly. Can you properly judge a game dog if the dog is on performance enhancers or has been his through all of his his outs.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's been a debate for decades because they have been used for decades. Back in the day, say in the 50s, they call them hormones. And Don Mayfield was a proponent of that. Even back in the day, Tudor and Sadler, they're the ones who really started using blood count. Test the blood for dogs because their vet was a horse vet also, and he was involved with the horse racing community, and they used blood count as a measure, of the health of the dog and the horse and the conditioning of the horse. So my first reaction would say yes, you can judge. You could judge the gameness of the dog. I never used steroids. Everybody just about that I competed with back then did.
Right.
And you hear people say, well, you want to be in the fast lane, you got to use steroids. No, that's not true. And this is the point I wanted to make, because enhancers do enhance, they do help. But for me, and I'll say this to anyone, if you care about your dogs, for me, you don't know what the long-term effects are. And we know just from seeing, human athletes that they can be very negative. The other things, you don't know what it does to their mind. Again, you heard all this stuff in the past, makes people angry and violent and this and that. Maybe in their mind they thought, well, that's good for a dog, but it also can make them depressed.
Right.
And it can, have a lot of effects. So it wasn't worth it to me to do that. Well, how do you get around that? How do you compete with guys that use it? And again, you have to be expert on it, because they're used in the horse racing community. They use butane, they use Lasix to control bleeding, right?
Right.
But they have veterinaries, they have nutritionists, they have all these doctors, they have all this science behind it. They have monitors, they have all this. We don't have that. So it's basically trial and error until you get it right. And the thing with steroids and basically with conditioning, steroids, they have a time limit. Once they're done, your dog's done. I've seen that over and over and over again. It might take a while, but once they're done, there's no recuperating from them because they're played out. Whereas the natural work, you can go through that 2-3 times. You can recoup 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And with steroids, they will do that too. But like I said, once they're finished, they're finished. I get debates on that all the time. But I never had no overall health problems with my dog. None.
And it fucks up the.
If you look, even now, it makes you think. These people are saying, well, my bitch don't come into heat. Well, my male, they didn't, the breeding didn't take. Well, he's got this problem, that problem. Well, he died at 6 years old. He died at 8 years old. Why is that?
Right.
Why do they have liver and kidney failure? Why do they have degenerative heart disease? Where's it coming from?
Exactly.
So maybe it's the steroids, maybe it's not. But if you don't have the steroids in there, it's not that. But they cause a lot of health problems. I mean, look at all the WWE, wrestlers. Look at Lyle Alzado and Bo Jackson and the guy who won the Tour de France. What was his name?
Lance Armstrong.
That whatever his problem was, testicular cancer or whatever it was directly related to his steroid use. There's no doubt.
Right. Right.
So you have to weigh that, not to be disrespectful, but back in the day we used to say people that need to use them is because they're not good enough. And getting back to the point I made earlier, how do you combat that? Well, you have to have your dogs healthy, man. You got to teach them. They're athletes, so you have to exercise them regularly their whole life. If you don't do that, you don't feed them good and give them regular exercise, guarantee you 9 times out of 10, somebody using enhancers, they're going to get beat. You're going to,
right.
That you have no nothing to combat it, because the dog's sitting there. You take him off the chain, you put him through a keep. The other guy, he might do the same thing, but he got the enhancers to help him with recuperation and they don't have sore joints and stamina, work harder, for longer periods of time. So you have to naturally build up your dog to be able to do that. Work harder for a longer period of time. Have good stamina. But the thing with the gameness, they either have it or they don't. Giving them enhancers isn't going to increase that or decrease it. Not giving them enhancers isn't going to make a difference. The only thing it'll do is the enhancers have a way of amping a dog up where they're at that high level of performance for a longer period of time.
Right.
So it may take longer to see it, but you will see it. And like I said, the way to combat that, you got to have your dog on that same level naturally, and that takes a lot of work.
Right. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's your perspective about? I want to get to know both your preference and just your take on raw food versus kibble.
Right. Well, I'm this way about food. As long as it works for you, as long as the dog's healthy, it's good. The problem with kibble is not so much the ingredients, it's the processing and the additives they put in there. Right? But with any food, you can Google anything, and I guarantee you'll find something wrong with it. A lot of people like for instance, there was a post about flaxseed, right? People use it for the omega oils in it, and then you have the other side saying, well, flaxseed bad for dogs. Coconut oil is another recent thing that people use for fat content. You're gonna have somebody get on there and say coconut oil. Veterinarians and nutritionists, all this stuff. Coconut oil ain't no good for your dog. Don't give them this, don't give them that, this and that. So you have to find a diet that works. And the one thing about feed is dogs' digestive system, unless they've been prepped their whole life, they ain't like ours. They can't. It's hard for them to eat all kinds of different stuff unless they're used to eating all kinds of different stuff. So whatever you feed them, you should feed them that all the time. And what I did is when I put them in keep, I just fed them real food that they were already getting in the kibble. Right. I didn't change it. So if I'm feeding a chicken-based kibble, I'm going to feed them chicken. If I'm using beef, I'm going to feed them real beef, right? And whatever subs are in the kibble, I'm going to give them the same thing. Whether it's carbs, a certain kind of carbs like brown rice, or if you want simple sugars, you're going to give them honey or something like that rather than real sugar.
Right.
Fruit is not real good. Citrus is not real good for dogs because of the acid, right? But stuff like apples. But if you can figure out a well-rounded diet using raw feed, where it's balanced and they're getting everything that they need, then it's good. And again, if like I said, Google it, you'll see veterinarian, dog nutrition, this and that, saying you should never feed your dog raw. Well, right. There's too many people doing it that have all this success that it works for them. So that's my thing with the feed. Find something that works. Feed it all the time. Don't deviate from it too much. And when you condition your dog, feed them the same stuff. You're just giving them more of it.
Right. Right.
And some people overdo it with the supplements. They don't see. My dog fell out during keep. Why? Well, you're getting too much of this and too much of that, and they already had it in their feed. If you're giving them 3 or 4 different kinds of fat, then you should know exactly what those 3 or 4 different kinds of fat do. What's their burn rate? And how do they affect your dog? Because the two things dogs need is protein and fat. Anything other than that, it's just to help them out, any kind of vitamin or any kind of mineral or trace element, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And some minerals are good for dogs, some ain't, you know. So it takes time. But I fed, you know, the kibble we used was developed by a guy who used to work for Purina, and he worked in the high end dog food, you know, like Purina One or whatever
Right.
they have. When he retired, he developed his own dog food, and while he was developing it and testing it, he sent it out to all these different people. He sent it out to us who competed with our dogs. He sent it out to weight pullers. He sent it out to greyhound dog guys, you know, and hunting dogs, and you know, all these different people till he came up with a formula, which was basically chicken and lamb was the main ingredient.
Right. Right.
It's not in business. It was Neutral Max back then, but it's not the same dog food. He sold it. The recipe is different. I wouldn't recommend it, but at least there was some testing behind it, some science behind it, and you know, it worked good for us, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, if you want to feed kibble, just try and find a good one. There's all these recalls and all that. You know, it's because of the junk they put in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now it's something like I never heard of in the past. Dogs are developing allergies. You know, some are allergic to chicken. How's a dog gonna be allergic to chicken?
That's what I said. I asked the same
To
question.
me, that's crazy. You know what I mean? That don't make no sense. You know, and they're having all these skin issues and all this and that. The dogs have to be durable. They have to be tough. They have to have constitution. And if someone isn't doing something with their dog, you know, some kind of physical thing, anything, the dog ain't the same no more. We see that with all these show breeds. They're nothing like what they used to be because they're not being used for their original purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't do that, the breed's gone. It ain't no good, you know.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you the art of paper hanging. You know, paper hanging has been around for a long time, and
Right.
you know, so I want you to share with us some of your experiences. Have you ever been a victim of paper hanging, and how do you think that affects the breed currently today?
Right. Well, you know, like anything, people took something that was common, misconstrued it, and took advantage of it. They found a way to monopolize on it, to make money, to cheat, steal, lie, right? Because back in the day, if you look when the dogs were first imported, a lot of them have unknown pedigree, right? And that was because they either didn't want someone, you know, the guy who sent the dogs over here. They knew where the dogs come from, people getting them here,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew basically what blood it was. But the person saying the dog didn't want them to know what dogs they had.
Right.
Right. Or they were illiterate and they couldn't write down a pedigree anyway. They could tell you he's off of Berks Tanner and he's this and that and Fly of Panama, whatever. But they couldn't write it down because, you know, people honestly were illiterate. Those are the two factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see this throughout the history of the breed. And in game fowl, that's common. They'll tell you who the cock is, but they won't tell you who the hen is. Right?
Right.
And they just do that to protect their blood. Right? But those people generally, they didn't sell dogs that often. They didn't sell their birds. Right?
Right.
Now people have taken it and say, well, I can lie, I can hang these papers, and I can give you what you want. Because I've known a bunch of them, man. You go to their yard and you know what blood they have, and you say, I want this and that, I got it here. I want this and that, I got it here. No problem.
Right.
How the pups bred? How the pups bred? Well, how do you want them bred? I want them off a pistol. You know, I want them off a pistol and Miss Spike. I got a bunch of them here. Right. And that's what they did, because if you're depending or mostly depending on the breed, the dogs, your sales for your livelihood, you see it as a business, then you got to sell people what they want.
Right.
And it's done repeatedly. There's whole bloodlines, man. And I don't want to get into who this and who that and all that. them dogs ain't bred nothing like they say. I don't care. They ain't. But you have to know these people. You have to be around. You have to be there when they're doing it.
Right.
To know. So there's a lot of speculation, throughout the history of the breed. There's, Bully Son ain't bred like that, and Boomerang ain't bred like that, and you name it. Zebo's, off of Eli, all that stuff. I've heard them all. I don't know which ones are true for them dogs that I don't know personally, but it's done a lot, and they do it now more so. They do it to lie, cheat, and steal, and they do it because they don't want nobody to know what their how their dogs are bred. At least in Carver's defense, he didn't lie about it. He told you, I'm going to sell you this dog, and I'm going to hang papers on it, or I'm going to put whatever I want. I'm not going to tell you how they're bred.
Right.
At least I can respect him a little bit, because he wasn't just saying, yeah, that's what it is. That's the true breeding here. No, he was like the game fowl guys do. You want the bird? This is what it is. My blood. This. You want papers? Okay, I'll write whatever the hell I want.
Right.
You can't really argue with that, because at least he's being honest with you. But now people they just saw it as a way to make some money,
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and I advise people of this: look, you got to follow the dog. You got to follow the traits, follow the temperament, the behavior, this and that. You got to know the bloodlines. You have to have experience with the dog, so you know what you're looking at. That's the first thing. Then you worry about what the pedigree is. That's all been reversed. People look at the pedigree and go, "Wow, that dog bred nice."
Right.
That don't mean nothing. I've had champions, I've had winners, I've had game loot, all that, and I've had litter mates to those dogs that quit.
Right.
So in that respect, what good was a pedigree? One of my best was Champion Bill. His brother quit, so I don't even remember his brother's name, but he's bred the same way. They're litter mates. So that pedigree, people get hung up on it. You should focus on the dog first, and then worry about what his pedigree is, and then that pedigree matters. Other than that, it plays no role in what the dog is about. And having a pretty pedigree don't mean he's worth anything.
Yeah. It's like kind of like somebody protecting their secret recipe for their food or whatever. They'll sell it to you, but they'll sell you the food, but they don't want you to know how they made it.
Yeah, and that for me, that's okay as long as they're upfront about it. But when you start telling, this dog bred like that, and this, they're off of stolen dogs, and or dog died, but somebody still wants a pup off of them, or older dog off of them. When they do that, then that, because you can do whatever you want with your dog, but when you're making available to the public and you're selling to people, if you're lying and cheating about that, then I take issue with it.
Right.
People they can do whatever they want, And if someone, with me, if they tell me, if I ask, hey, I want one of your dogs, I'm gonna buy one of your dogs or one of your pups, and if they were to tell me, I'll sell you the pup, Rich, but I ain't giving you no papers. I ain't even gonna tell you how it's bred. So if you want it, you buy it. If not, it's okay too. That I can respect.
Yeah. I can respect that too, because especially if you want the dog for performance.
That's right. So but if I go to Carver and he does it, I know what dogs they are. You know what I mean? If I go to Floyd Boudreaux, I know what he's got. So I don't, in that respect, it don't have to be real accurate. You know what they are.
Yeah, you basically know what family they come from.
Yeah, I can. In fact, one of my best brood bitches, she was inbred off a Jeep, right? She was father-daughter off a Jeep. And I knew how she was bred. And then my friend, he, had given her to me. Well, later on, after she was older, he goes, she's not really bred that way. And I told him, Steve, I don't care. It don't matter to me. If the pet is different in the background, I don't care. But I know my pets are straight. My pets are right. I want to give credit to the dogs that deserve it, and the ones that don't shouldn't get no credit. I don't care if you're my favorite dog.
Right.
So that I didn't lie about nothing, because it's your word should mean nothing. Should mean something. You know, you should have some integrity, and that will follow you. You know, you see all this stuff over the internet. You hear all these stories, man. People don't forget. 30, 40 years later, don't forget. Yeah, he stole a dog from me. Yeah, this guy's a piece of junk. You know.
Right.
They can't say that about me.
Yes, indeed. Hey, Buck, go ahead, Buck.
Just a quick question. You know, we got, you know, in this game, you know, you got your dog thieves, you got your paper hangers. You know, those are, I mean, we could probably name a few more that are among the list of, you know, just the bottom of the barrel, you know, type of person that you could come in contact with.
Right.
For some reason, and I'm not gonna say it's on the same level, but the word peddler is squeezed in there somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So I was just curious as to what was your take on, you know, the word and how it's used and the what it should mean and what it does mean. You know what I'm saying? Things like that.
Exactly. You know, peddler by its definition means somebody that sells stuff. You know, and again, people over time, you know, because the community is this way, you know. Once something is said, if it's repeated enough, people just believe it. So when people say peddler, they like to, you know, peddler ain't no good, and you're a peddler, and this peddler, this and that, and da 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 da. Right? Well, there's very, very few dog men that I know. Most famous ones, and no matter what they say, they've sold dogs.
Right.
So does that make them a peddler? No.
Exactly.
The term itself is meant for the people like you're saying, Buck, you know, unscrupulous people, cheaters and liars and thieves and stuff like that, because they're peddling the dogs dishonestly because they're trying to make money. And when you make money the focus of the dog, you're going to have all kinds of problems. You have to cheat, you have to lie, you have to steal, because in their mind they have to survive. The people have to survive, and they got to feed all these dogs, so they got to sell some of them or a lot of them, and it's a never ending, you know, just keep revolving. Whereas, you know, if you sell dogs here and there, that's fine. That don't make you a peddler. But to say someone who sells dog is unscrupulous, no. You know, then all them famous guys, name one, and I'll tell you, I can probably tell you what dog he sold. And these are from people saying, I don't sell dogs. It's like saying, you know, back in the day. Well, what day was back in the day? When they say I don't sell dogs, as a rule, they're not just there to sell dogs, but they'll sell them. They've sold them.
Right.
My buddy, he'll tell you flat off, I don't sell dogs. I don't sell dogs. He don't, but he has, you know, maybe 3 or 4 times in his whole life, but he has. So that it's the integrity of the person that matters, not so much the word, you know. Anybody who sells a dog, somebody going to call him a peddler. No.
Right.
So, you know, I sold dogs. I gave some away. I sold some. For me, it was a way, hey, get my blood out there, see how it does with someone else's hand. You know, if I can do good with it, that's one thing, but it don't mean nothing if someone else can't do good with it too.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of my take on it.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right. My last question for you, Schoolboy, is breeding to curs. Okay. Now, there's always a debate going on about, you know,
right.
It should always be breeding the best to the best, and from that way you're more likely to get better dogs.
Right.
But there's also rumors, you know, from people who were around at that time, that some of the best dogs ever, best producers, were bred through cur lineage, like maybe Redboy. It's rumors. I don't know if this is true or not. Rumors that Jeep, his father was a cur. Just rumor. I don't know.
Right.
But based off of that, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know, I didn't keep dogs that quit. You know, I wouldn't breed them. And that's not to say there haven't been a ton of them that have quit that were good producers. But the circumstances, you have to look at that. And I look at it this way: if that's a negative trait for me, that's something I don't want.
Right.
So I'm not going to increase it by keeping and breeding the dog that quit, no matter how it's bred, or even how much I like them, because you're going to get good dogs, or you have that potential, but now you're increasing the odds that you're going to get more curs too.
Right.
And in my pedigrees, there ain't no dogs that quit. I'm not saying they were dead game or all like that. Again, talking about the past, but they were to my satisfaction, and I was pretty rough on my dogs for that reason. That when you start out, you get a bunch of them that don't make the grade, man, and you get tired of it. So how do you fix it? Don't breed to those dogs that do that. And like I say, there's a lot of examples. I'll give you two, because you just mentioned, Jeep sire Finley's Bow, right? And like you say, there's a debate, right? He won 2 or 3, and then he lost to Vindicator. During the show, either Lonzo or somebody bet Bob Finley that Bo wouldn't scratch, right? So they get a handle. Bo flies across. Boom. Right? Fight goes on. Vindicator starts dominating. Right? And he's ripping up his front end. Bo starts protesting. They stop it. They go to courtesy scratch Bo, and he don't cross. Okay? That was 1 hour and 40 minutes. It's a tough go. It's this and that, and it's not like some ranked dog just jumping out.
Right.
Right. After that, he was matched 2 or 3 more times. He won. So Vindicator had his number. He didn't make his courtesy scratch, but they thought enough of him, they're going to keep him and breed him. Right. Which is different from someone just making an excuse, especially nowadays, that, well, Bo quit, so why shouldn't I keep this dog that quit?
Right.
Or they say Bullison. Bullison is the one that gets me, man, because they go, well, Bullison quit, and there's a lot of dogs off of him. That point is moot, because any breeding that was done with Bullison was done before he lost. Those puppies were on the ground, or the females were pregnant, or whatever. They didn't keep Bullison after he lost because he died. So for me, that's a dumb point. Well, Bullison, they didn't know it at the time that when they bred him that he was going to quit. That didn't happen till his match. And with him, you get, well, he didn't quit. Well, he did this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And there's all kinds of circumstances. He wasn't healthy, which is true. I did a audio interview with both Jerry Clemens and Red Walling back in the day. I don't have it anymore. I lost it, but it would be great to have. I reflect back on it.
Right.
But they told me all the stuff. He was 1/3 low on blood, and he had Bullison had staples in his mouth where he chewed through, fought a chain link fence and ripped his mouth. So his blood count was real low, and he wasn't healthy. And the rumor is that he was bred right up until the day before, and he was fighting a naturally bigger opponent. Then if you look at the advertisements for him and Eli Jr., they'll advertise, I'll match anyone to between 50 and 54 pounds or 55 pounds. Both of them were 49, 50-pound dogs only. So when he went into Benny Bob, not only was he unhealthy, but he was also giving up 3 or 4 pounds weight.
Right.
So I'm not saying that's an excuse, but you got to understand the circumstances. So saying Bullison quit and people still kept, his offspring, of course. He hadn't quit before he was bred. So Bo is one situation, Bullison is another situation. But again, people take things too far. And every piece of junk that ever jumped out and ran away crying for their mama after 3 minutes, they're going to keep it because they're going to use those as an example. Those are totally different circumstances.
Right.
I've had dogs that I put down after 2 hours and they quit. They just
Right.
stand there, take the count, you know, and which that's a lot different from just, you know, looking at them in your backyard and they just take off, you know.
Right.
At least I would say you had to take everything out of one of my dogs before they quit. Not
Right.
all of them were game. Some of them weren't no good when they were young, you know, when I'm looking at them. And some of them, a few of them quit in matches. But like I said, you had to take it out of them, man. It wasn't going to give it up in 10, 15 minutes, you know. I'm talking, you know, 2 hours, 208, 202, like that, you know. So that's some kind of measure of quality, at least, you know. You ain't going to punk them out in 3 minutes, you know.
Right.
And you know, you got to have, so as far as, you know, curs go, I wouldn't do it. People do it. They can do whatever they want, but at least I have a reason, you know, for not doing it. Because anything that is a trait of the dog can be passed on. And the bad ones, for some reason, they seem to be passed on a lot easier and harder to get rid of than the good ones. So I'm not going to introduce something that's bad. You know, when we talk about culling and breeding and all that, it always comes down to the gameness thing. But you know as well as I do, people cull animals for a lot less reasons than that.
Absolutely. The wrong color.
Yeah, wrong color. I don't like his tail. He's, you know, he's undershot too much. He's got a crooked jaw. You know, he's too small. He's too big.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do that, then I wouldn't keep no dog because it quit. You know.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, you know, if you do things right, you have the dog in good condition. He's healthy. You did your job, and he don't pan out. You can't blame yourself. You don't have that guilt in your mind about you did something wrong. Whereas if you don't, you know, that's why people make excuses. Well, he wasn't healthy, and you know he's in shock. Or, you know, he ran hot or this or that. You know, then they have that guilt because it's their fault. It's not the dog's fault. And all that, believe me, I'm older now. It sticks in your brain till you get older. You know, Bert Soros used to say something, you know, because he was hard on his dog, man. He right real close to that line, you know, and he would say, keep rolling them old dogs, you'll have nightmares the rest of your life. And his point was, you know, you shouldn't do that. Leave them alone. Man. They're done. Leave them alone. If you don't know when to stop, maybe you shouldn't have them.
Right.
But they're not machines. They're flesh and blood. And you ain't gonna, if you keep pushing them, once you break their spirit, they're done. They're finished.
Exactly.
Don't matter if they showed gameness before. Don't matter if they, you know, won or whatever in the past. You know, if you break a dog spirit, anything, even racing horses, you know, they'll tell you their spirit broke. They're done. Can't do nothing with it.
Yep.
So you have to be careful not to do that. And that takes experience, you know. It takes years. I'm still learning. I've been involved with the breed for 42 years, 41, 42 years. I'm still learning.
Right.
You know. So you have to have an eye for it, for everything, you know. And I'll say this too, you'll have the most success with the dogs you breed and raise and feed yourself more than you will with something you're not familiar with.
Right.
That's you know, someone asked me one time, you know, what's your advantage, you know? And out of the blue, I go, I don't know, you know, he caught me off guard, right? So I said, I don't know. He goes, well, my mentor says his advantage is conditioning. So me, because I felt insulted, I said, well, anybody can learn to condition. That's not hard, you know, which not everybody can, but that was my reaction. And after talking to him a little, I said, you know what my advantage is? It's breeding, raising, feeding, conditioning, and handling my own dog. That's my advantage. That's the only way I could put it. Because you know him better than anyone else. You know him from the cradle to the grave. You know what they're about, what they'll give you and what they won't, how to work them, how to feed them. You know, they're your dogs and they're a reflection of you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, Schoolboy, I want to thank you so much for your time. You know, this was a great interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, and keep doing what you're doing, Buck, and you too, my brother. Keep on with the 78 sports, man. It's good stuff. You know, the
yes, sir.
There's not a lot of people that do this, you know, and it needs to be carried on for the breed's sake.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna definitely keep going. Keep pushing it, man. That's what we're gonna do, man. Well, thank you for your time, Schoolboy, and I'll definitely stay in contact with you, man.
Thank you.
And,
I appreciate it.
I'll be contacting you soon for a dual registry.
All right, sounds good. Stay safe.
All right, peace.
You too. Peace.
All right.